Good afternoon and welcome to Revenue Marketing Television, the video channel dedicated to thought leadership from the world's top marketing executives. I'm your host, Jeff Pedowitz, President and CEO of the Pedowitz Group. Today's guest is the world famous Scott Brinker. Scott is co-founder and chief technology officer of Ion Interactive, editor of chiefmartech.com, and program chair of the Martech Conference Series, which runs events in the United States and Europe on the intersection of marketing and technology. Scott's been writing the Chief Marketing Technologist blog, chiefmartech.com, since 2008. The site covers the intersection of marketing and technology and the effects of that intersection on marketing strategy, management, and culture. The blog has developed an audience of over 40,000 readers, mostly mid to senior level marketers and marketing technologists. The site's annual marketing technology supergraphic has been widely shared throughout the industry. As co-founder and CTO of Ion Interactive, Scott's responsible for overall business management and strategy with two co-founders. He leads day-to-day product development and technical operations with a team of software engineers, designers, and marketing technologists. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jeff. Good to be here.
So, first question. This infographic, this super graphic, it's taken on a life of its own. But what inspired you to begin tracking these companies in the first place?
So about 5 years ago, 2011, when I made the first one, I was giving presentations trying to convince marketers of why they wanted to hire technical talent as an integral part of the marketing team. This role of a marketing technologist, which back then was very new and very novel. And so one of the reasons I assembled the first version of this was to just help marketers realize just how much software was entangled in modern marketing. And back then it was something like 150 companies, and we were all like, oh my goodness, 150 software companies. Man, I guess marketing really is overwhelmed with software today.
So from 150, it's now what? What's the current number?
Like over 3,500. And that's not even complete. I just had someone send me a list of something like 200 other companies that I've missed.
Do you have like a little ticker in your office, like the old McDonald's signs? So it just keeps every day, it incrementally just keeps going up?
I did, but it broke down.
Couldn't keep up, right? It was only meant for 3 digits. So with all this marketing technology, what are some of the major trends you're seeing? I mean, are there certain categories within the landscape that are predominantly growing faster than others?
I mean, there's certainly some categories that are extremely hot. As you know, content marketing has become such a critical part of what marketers are doing today. And there's so many tools that help with the entire pipeline, from sourcing through to distributing content. So a lot of cool stuff there. A lot of great stuff happening on the data side, very sophisticated analytics tools, attribution, predictive analytics. We're starting to see some really exciting artificial intelligence, machine learning capabilities based around this data. Social media is still hot. The whole landscape is pretty vibrant today.
So what are your thoughts on the Microsoft acquisition of LinkedIn?
I think it's fascinating. I've had a theory for a while that the channel between marketers and customers has a series of steps. There's marketing software, there's internet services like LinkedIn, and then there's client software, like web browsers and smartphones and things like that. And if you treat these things as a channel, you recognize that every single piece of that channel has some power and some influence over the relationship between marketers and their audience. And my opinion is that companies like Microsoft and to a certain extent Google, and then to a lesser degree even Amazon and Facebook, as they start to get capabilities across that entire channel, I think that puts them in a really incredibly competitive position for the next 5, 10, 15 years.
So what does this say, though, to some of the startups in the same category? Should they be concerned that there's all this consolidation with the big guys, or do you think that there's even more opportunity for them to innovate and find additional niches?
I think there's definitely opportunities for innovation. When it comes down to which particular startup you're starting, who are you looking to disrupt? Who are you looking to compete with? I think it's also very interesting to consider the fact that there's still a lot of opportunity for complementary software. That if you look at some of these major providers, like Marketo, for instance, has this very rich ISV ecosystem. So it's one thing to try and compete with Marketo. It's another thing to say, hey, we have a tool that adds on to Marketo. Maybe that's not going to be $1 billion company, but it might be something that could be incredibly valuable to a set of marketers.
So with all this innovation and with all this technology coming out, how are you finding marketing departments are keeping up with adopting and developing the skills to use it?
I'm not sure if keeping up is the best way to characterize it. I think almost every marketer I talk to feels that they're not keeping up, that the world is moving faster than they can process. So the good news is you're not alone. Everybody feels that way. So it really comes down to a question of degrees of keeping up. And I think, for marketers, the ones I see who are doing the best job have kind of a two-pronged strategy. On one hand, they stay pretty focused on a small set of things that's really important to their operations, to their audience. That it's better to do a few things really well than spread yourself thin. And it's definitely easy to spread yourself thin these days. But at the same time, if you say that's maybe 80% of the investment is getting real clarity around what our core marketing capabilities are, I think another trend you see with companies that are successful is they do keep, 10%, 20% of their marketing resources available to do some experimentation with innovation that's happening on the edge. Just really as a way of, trying to keep pace, not so much with changes in marketing technology, because that's a very inward-looking thing, but just trying to keep pace with changes in consumer technologies, the technologies that our customers and our audience are using, that ultimately marketers need to go where their audience goes.
Is there a certain recommended way to staff this? Is there a full-time technologist role? Is IT starting to report in or work with marketing? Does everybody share some of this? If I was an executive, how would you advise me to go about it?
Yeah, it certainly depends on the size of your company as to what resources you can have available, frankly, what resources you really need. I think ideally, I'm a big believer that having some marketing technology talent embedded in the marketing team is incredibly valuable. Not so much for, picking technologies or, getting them installed, because that's kind of a very much, a spiky process. But really where the value comes from is having some of that technologist DNA working side by side with other kinds of marketers to really cross-pollinate just how do we think about leveraging this technology in the service of really brilliant marketing. So I think not everyone in marketing has to be a technologist, but having a marketing technologist or having a small team for larger companies, very valuable. That being said, I don't think this is a replacement for IT. Very often this is the sort of operational work with these tools that IT isn't interested in. I think it's still very important for marketing and these marketing technologists to collaborate openly, transparently with the official IT team and really look to IT to set a lot of the governance around how we adopt these technologies and make sure that they're robust and secure.
Great advice. So if anyone that's gone to the MarTech conference or has read a lot has seen the term stacking. So what is a stacking and why is it important?
So the term stacking arose a couple years ago because I started to see marketers at conferences who would come up with a slide in their presentation that described the different tools they had assembled. And not so much, the specific tools themselves. It isn't really as interesting to me as actually the way they would piece them together into some sort of story to say, this is how we think from a business perspective on the capabilities that these marketing technologies are enabling. So after seeing a few of these out in the wild, I got inspired to start a contest, the Stackies, which we've now run for 2 years in conjunction with the MarTech conference. This last one back in March, we had 41 marketers who submitted these really great PowerPoint slides describing how they think about assembling their marketing technology tools into a business strategy, into a marketing capability. And the great thing is, the deal is they submit to the contest. At the end, we make all the Stackies available to everyone openly, so you can do a Google search for MarTech Stackies, and you can download the deck of all 41 of these.
Yeah, I went through them all. What's what I love about marketing. I mean, just so many different creative ways of expressing it. So yeah, very fascinating. So of course you wear many hats, and one of them also is content. And with Ion Interactive, you do a lot of work around content with assessments and tools. So how is the role of content changing as it relates to demand gen? Is it different today than it was a couple years ago with all these new channels, or is it the same? It's just you need to rethink about it differently.
Yeah, I mean, both. At the core, really it comes down to using content as a way to engage and educate our audience in a world where, sort of classic advertising techniques, and classic interrupt-driven marketing techniques just don't have the efficacy that they did 10 years ago. So we really need great content that our audience genuinely wants to consume. That being said, content, like everything else in marketing here, is continuing to evolve very, very rapidly. So the trend that I focus on with my work at Ion Interactive is this emerging category of interactive content. So as you said, things like assessments or games or calculators or configurators, any of these sorts of things where the audience isn't just passively consuming the content, like reading an ebook or watching a video, but they actively participate with the content. It becomes almost like a little utility or service that they use to help them achieve some outcome.
So are there different skills specifically that one needs to apply to be developing content today, or is it similar?
I think it's an augmented skill set. So, when you start getting into interactive content, you realize you're not just trying to come up with messages or the way you're designing the look and feel of how things are presented, but you're actually designing functionality, right? Like if you're going to design an assessment to really say help a set of prospects determine where they are with the maturity of their company in the category that you serve, and sort of mapping that to how you might be able to help them. So if you start to design that sort of a tool, right? I mean that exercise is a different set of the brain, a different set of skills. It's not just about communicating this stuff, written down. It's about thinking, okay, well, what would we ask? What would the answer choices be based on someone's answers? How would that map, to a particular solution we would give them at the end? So you actually start to get, to me, I think it's very exciting for marketers because this becomes a new dimension of creativity. But it does start to exercise, more of this almost software building mentality in what marketers are offering to their prospects.
So a couple weeks ago, you asked me a question around agile marketing. I'm going to phrase that slightly different for you. Is there a concept known as agile content? And if so, how would marketers approach that?
So my interpretation would be agile content is, simply applying agile marketing methodologies in the service of content marketing. I actually think content marketing is it's such a perfect fit for an agile approach because, thanks to the ability to distribute content so quickly and so easily and get reactions from people in social media, it really lends itself to saying, okay, well, we have a set of ideas, hypotheses of content we want to try. let's very quickly put together some of the first iterations, get it out into the market, maybe in limited channels. Maybe let's just try this in Twitter to, see what people's reaction is. And then based on that feedback, be able to iterate, come up with, either alternative versions or expand on what you already did. So it's really, it definitely lends itself to those sort of fast feedback loops that you see with agile practices.
So where would you advise today's CMO to start if they're getting ready to put in a content strategy? What's some of the advice that you would give them?
This might sound a bit cliche, but to me, it does all come back to the customer, to the audience. What is the content that would be truly valuable to that audience? I mean, I think all too often, marketing can sort of follow the content idea du jour of, we should have an ebook, we should have an infographic on this, we should have the survey, and get into a mode where we're almost, thinking through the lens of, okay, well, how do we produce more stuff? And I think a great place to start is to actually step back and have some of these conversations with the people who are representative of your audience to make sure you just really understand, okay, what content would be really valuable, really useful to them. I'm a big believer in producing fewer things really well rather than just, feeding the beast, as they say.
Absolutely. So next year, any major predictions in the market, either for content or technology, that we should pay attention to?
Oh, man, yeah. I think I've determined I'm no good at predictions. But I think one meta prediction I have is change is going to happen. I don't know exactly what all the changes will be, but I'm pretty certain this market is going to continue to change for quite some time. And so with that in mind, I think it's very important for marketers to, in their technology strategy and also in their marketing strategy, to be prepared for that. To, as they say in the software world, design for change. Keep your options open so that if you need some new capability or you need to swap out some particular piece of software a year or two from now, you've sort of left, you're building some options into your approach to give you that freedom.
Well, as usual, Scott, 15 minutes is never enough time, but it's always great speaking with you. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us this afternoon.
Thank you. Great chatting with you, Jeff.
Thanks, Scott.